And this will be a tag team presentation. It's going to be with the Metro Vancouver, British Columbia, the large wastewater regional utility there. And Winston Cheng is a senior engineer within British Columbia, Vancouver, British Columbia. And these folks, they'll be speaking, they're part of Metro Vancouver's liquid waste service business development team. And also he'll be joined by Colin Jeffery. Colin is a project engineer with Kerr, Leidal, who is supporting Metro Vancouver's business development team. So at this point, we'll have Colin and Winston talk about their approach to soil heat recovery in Metro Vancouver, British Columbia.
Yep, you're all set to go.
Okay, sounds good. Great. Thanks a lot, everyone. My name is Winson Cheng with Metro Vancouver, along with my colleague here, Colin Jeffery, but he might be a few minutes late here, but I'll just head off our presentation here to talking about our approach to wastewater heat recovery in the Metro Vancouver area. So just briefly, I'll go over who's Metro. Sewer heat recovery, I think we heard about, so we'll just touch on that. Why we do it up here in Canada, in the Pacific Northwest, where does it work, how we do it, and some of the projects that we have on the go. So quickly, for those who may not be familiar, Metro Vancouver is a regional level government in between the province of British Columbia and the municipal cities that comprise of our region here. So we're made up of about over 20 municipalities. We service about 2.8 million residents here in the Pacific Northwest, the Greater Vancouver area in British Columbia. And Metro Vancouver as an organization provides regional scale utility services in drinking water, wastewater, solid waste, and also housing functions. We also, on the next slide here, we act as a regional forum for, building collaboration and, finding opportunities to advance, livability in the region. And we also plan for the future, including some of the climate action activities that we'll touch upon here today. So, on the topic of wastewater, how it works here in the Vancouver area essentially is we have over 500 kilometers of trunk sewers. Our sewer system is mainly gravity fed, and we operate 5 wastewater treatment plants that discharge into what we call the Fraser River, eventually into Strait of Georgia, and then into the Pacific Ocean. We're regulated by the province of British Columbia and the Canadian federal government on effluent quality. And we're continuously trying to find opportunities to leverage our wastewater system to help some of our climate action goals, including sewer heat recovery, reclaimed water, and renewable natural gas, or RNG, like we call it up here. And so just to add, in terms of drinking water, we operate 3 dams in the mountains here that kind of service all the municipalities that form the Greater Vancouver area. So on sewer heat, our drivers for waste heat recovery are guided by, we have several plans, policy plans. Liquid waste plan, where our board has mandated us to use liquid waste as a resource. Our strategic plan, which kind of touches on the same kind of principles, and also Climate 2050 plan, where Metro Vancouver is hoping to reach certain greenhouse gas reduction targets, including carbon neutrality, in the next 25 plus years. So quickly on the right here, it's kind of a breakdown of where we're seeing a lot of the emissions come up. and there's a opportunity for Metro here to leverage our sewer system, particularly on the building side, to move people away from fossil fuels. So how we started our sewer heat recovery program, it's been over 10 years in the making. We initially hired consultants to look at the available heat in our trunk sewers. So here's an example of one of the sewage areas in the Greater Vancouver areas towards the suburbs in the east. And you can see the red lines here kind of give an indicator of the available theoretical energy in megawatts. So as you get closer to the treatment plant, which is, one of them is located, the largest one actually, the red there, right in kind of the, middle of the screen, top left there, we see more available heat. And then as, you go further, back upstream, there's a little bit less heat. And when our consultant did that study over a decade ago, they came up with the idea that there's enough heat across our 500 kilometers of sewers to service about 700 high rises. And so we're currently in the midst of updating this model and making it public on our website via GIS, so that interested external parties can just, as a first glance initial, kind of outlook, look at what's available. There's a lot of densification, new condos and high rises in town centers in Vancouver, the Greater Vancouver area. So especially near rapid transit. So, and a lot of our sewers are actually close to some of these locations. So we're just trying to make the data available to kind of encourage the screening tools that energy companies or our local municipalities can use as they look at district energy options. And then, touching on the temperatures here, in Celsius, we have, it's relatively warm throughout the year here, or steady, anywhere between 10 to 20 degrees Celsius in our wastewater treatment plants as the effluent that comes through. And so we have a relatively reliable amount of energy that we can tap within the collection system. And then, on the right there, you can kind of see, what we have right now in kind of the dark maroon color, and then what we foresee in the future as population grows and density grows. So it's just to highlight that, with the 5 treatment plants, our collection system, there's a lot of heat, and we don't anticipate any challenges with meeting demand as the years go by. And then I'll pass it back to Colin to kind of continue the presentation.
Thanks, Winson, and great to see everyone here. Today I'm going to go over how Winston's went over the reasons why we want to do sewer heat recovery. I'm going to talk about how Metro Vancouver is encouraging and facilitating this transition. So we can go to the next slide, Winson. So our sewage and waste heat recovery policy focuses on these 8 main topics, but the real goal of it is to make clear to potential partners in sewage heat recovery what Metro Vancouver expects from the partner and what Metro Vancouver can provide to the project. So Metro Vancouver's role as the Greater Vancouver Sewerage and Drainage District is that we operate all these main trunk sewers in the region. And so we have the opportunity to allocate that heat and that resource to potential partners. From the sewage heat partners, we'd expect them to provide all the infrastructure that can capture that heat. And then the financial conditions would be that Metro Vancouver, as a sewage and drainage district, wants to focus on that as their core business. So any additional operating costs would be the responsibility of the partner. The boundaries of responsibility. So in a typical system, we would have our trunk sewer and would have shut-off valves right outside. And we would operate the system up to those valves, and anything beyond those valves would be the responsibility of the proponent. And then we talk about the approval criteria. So as the system is connecting to Metrovan's sewer, it's important to us to be involved in that design process. The final step is looking at the GHG benefits. So this really gets into if Metro Vancouver is investing in the project, then our return would be expected to be a part of the GHG benefits or credits. Next slide. Looking at the risks, as mentioned, Metro Vancouver is a regional district, and so we are fairly risk adverse, both financially and from an operations perspective. Because our primary purpose is to operate the sewer, we want to ensure that there's no impacts to the collection system and the treatment plants. And so as we engage in these potential projects, we work with the proponent to complete a study that would show what the impact is on the sewage temperature, on flows, and ensure that that doesn't impact the treatment plant or the collection system. From a financial perspective, as mentioned, we don't want to have any ongoing costs. So any operational costs increases to the system, we would pass those on to the proponent. And then also for decommissioning, we expect that at the end of the life of the project, the proponent would disconnect their system. For the sewage access agreement, this is a new document that we've been working to develop with potential partners. And so we actually just signed our first agreement for a project in Vancouver. And so what that agreement outlines is the responsibilities of Metro Vancouver and the proponent, who's responsible for which costs, as well as one thing we're just getting into is who's responsible for the design and the input that we provide, where the boundaries of responsibility are, how working around Metro Vancouver's sewers, we have a proximal works agreement, and so just making sure that that's being followed, where the GHG benefits are allocated, where the fees are allocated, and how long the length of term would be. So from Metro Vancouver's perspective, obviously, we don't guarantee any sewage. And so if we had a long-term contract, we'd also have to guarantee that that sewer would remain in place. And so we work with the proponent who would obviously want to have a longer contract length to find a balance there that works for everyone. Next slide. So I want to talk about what the collaborative approach is that we're taking. And so when a proponent is interested in connecting to our sewer for a sewer heat recovery project, we have this 5-stage process that goes through the preliminary screening, the concept investigation, the design, and then a final agreement and construction. So I'm going to go through each of those steps fairly quickly, just to give an idea of what we expect at each stage. So next slide. On the first stage would just be an initial screening study. The proponent is looking at a variety of potentially low carbon energy sources that come to Metro Vancouver and request data. Because as Winson mentioned, we have a sewer heat model that kind of tell us approximately what the sewage flow and temperature is throughout our system. We're able to provide that information on a fairly high level. Going to the next stage, if the proponent shortlists sewer heat recovery as an option, they can then request that we put in specific monitors at their specific location so that we can get the detailed information at that site. And then Metro Vancouver would be able to provide them with that information and provide ongoing data to them while they complete their investigation. In step 3, we're looking at providing a more detailed study on what the impact of the sewer heat recovery facility would be on Metro Van's sewer. And so we look at then that's where the study on the impacts to the wastewater treatment plant and the collection system would be. And once again, Metro Vancouver would receive that. The next stage would be establishing an agreement. So if the study determines that this is a preferred option and they're going to start building the system, then we'd establish a contract or a terms of reference based on the specific context of that system. So I'll show later that we're working on about 5 of these systems right now, and each system has a unique characteristic based on the flows, the temperatures, whether there's downstream systems, and what those impacts would be. So the contract looks to outline those, and then finally we get into the construction phase where Metro Vancouver is an active partner. We have people on site to monitor our sewer and ensure no impact operations. And so as mentioned, we have about 5 projects on the go throughout the Lower Mainland, in North Van, Vancouver, Richmond, Surrey, and New West. And we're often getting new requests. So it's an exciting industry to be in, and we're glad to be a supporting partner in this. Thank you very much. And if there's any questions, I think we'll be happy to answer them.